Three. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us at Victorious Friday. You know, every week I talk about I have an amazing guest. Well, to this week will not disappoint. Again, I have an amazing guest. Not only is this a guest of mine, but this is a dear friend. We go back, as they say, we go way back. And when I think about my guest today, Pastor Daryl Griffin, I tell you, he's now pastoring the church that's been around since 1902, Oakdale Covenant Church. And Oakdale Covenant Church is near and dear to my heart because my grandparents attended Oakdale. My father, my mom attended Oakdale. So we're going way back in the neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois, and picking up some old roots here today on Victorious Friday. Well, let me tell you a little bit about this guest, because as he's going to share more even in his life. I mean, he grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I mean, he's a Morehouse grad, and he's also a Harvard divinity grad. He has so many accolades. I don't want to go into all of those. That's not the purpose of today's call. He may share some of those, but I tell you, what I find him is to be a man of God. I find him to be a person who is, as he say, he serves with a great church, and they have great people. You know, when I think about it, today's podcast, we're going to talk about some key things. And so here's some questions we may address as we go through. Do you like who you are? I mean, these are questions we ask every day. Do you even like the person that you're becoming? Do you even believe that your life really matters to God, and how you're created and what you're created for, greater purpose? You know, are you constantly in conflict with your spouse, with your children, with loved ones, with relatives, with co-workers, etc.? Well, today we're going to walk through a powerful tool that can help you answer those questions, or begin to at least find answers and investigate where you are in life, and how to navigate through this journey. Pastor Daryl Griffin, welcome to Victorious Friday.
Thank you so much, my brother. I'm grateful to be here.
Man, I tell you, you're from my hometown, Chicago, Illinois. And I tell you, I've been following from afar because my Chicago White Sox are, has finished in first place.
Yeah.
And we only get to celebrate every 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now I know I've offended half of my Chicago folks who are Chicago Cubs. But hey, I'm third generation Chicago White Sox. Yep. And so we are celebrating. And I tell you, if we make the World Series, I'm coming to Chicago and attending some games.
All right.
Brother, how you doing, man? Talk to me. How's the family? How's Chicago? How's Oakdale Covenant?
Oakdale is great. Again, we have endured the pandemic. We have navigated. We're still navigating it.
Yeah.
But things are well. I cannot complain. The family is doing well. And God is good, man. Yeah. I really cannot complain. I am a blessed man.
Yeah. Well, brother, it has been a joy to get to know you over the years. And now I get a chance to sit down with you today and just talk about something exciting that's on your heart. You have a new book coming out, and it's already out. And
yes.
It's called Building a Better You. Tell us about that, the passion behind it. Just give us a little bit of a summary on it.
So Building a Better You is about using the Enneagram. So many of you might, particularly in the Christian community, are starting to get familiar with this assessment tool called the Enneagram. It is sort of a 9 personality types, and it also helps to help you to understand yourself. We believe that the more you know about yourself, the better you can be in relationship with other people. The Enneagram is also a powerful tool to help you in team building and working with coworkers. And of course, the main thing is for you to understand yourself. A lot of us do not, many of our family members, our friends, they're crystal clear on a lot of our issues and our idiosyncrasies and all that. We just have trouble understanding it. And so the Enneagram gives you a tool to be able to do that so that you can truly find, purpose, and you can find healing, and you can find sort of a direction for your life. I kind of got exposed to the Enneagram through spiritual direction. I did a degree in spiritual direction, and Enneagram is kind of a staple of that about maybe almost 15 years ago. And it captured me, it nailed me, and it has helped us immensely at Oakdale. In fact, the Enneagram caused conflict to drop by about 90% in the life of our church, because now we don't take it personal. A lot of our sort of conflict, our different sides, we don't take it personally. We know that people can be wired that way.
Man, I think about that. Think about that conflict reduction of 90%, simply because we began to understand how to connect with one another, how to communicate, how a person is wired, so to speak, in their natural state and so forth. And to gain that understanding actually builds relationships, doesn't it? Oh man, I love that. And as I think about that, as you get to know yourself, I always say transformation begins in me. A lot of times we're pointing fingers and trying to figure out transformation in you, but really transformation begins in me. And this is a tool I can use to begin to assess who I am and how I'm wired and how I communicate and interact with other people. It took me down this thought as you were talking, as to, this is Victoria's family, and we talk about equipping parents who will reach their children and begin to interact with them. And each child may have a different personality. They may have a different approach to how they approach things and think about things. The Enneagram will even help me to understand my spouse and my children, won't it? Tell me give me a little insight. Yeah.
So I always knew that, of course, I knew the Enneagram is very effective in helping couples in their relationships and things like that, because I use it all the time there. And I just wasn't convinced at the beginning that the Enneagram could help, children and families. It didn't connect with me. Yeah. Until we run a school. As you know, we run Oakdale Christian Academy. And so I did the Enneagram reluctantly for the school. And I thought, well, it's not going to work that well. I was just confused by it. But I said, you know what? I'm going to do it for the parents and for the teachers. So we had a big event. I taught the Enneagram on a sort of a Wednesday evening or Thursday evening, taught the Enneagram. And a parent comes up to me and says, Pastor Griffin, you have solved a problem that my daughter and I have had we've been in therapy for the last 2 years dealing with it. And you've solved it in 90 minutes.
Wow.
What? I said, what are you talking about? So she said, my daughter, I'm a 1, which is, 1 is a leader. She says, I have a strong personality, so my type is a 1. I'm a 3. I'm an efficient person. I'm an 8. I have a very strong personality. My daughter is a 2, which means she's a loving kind of person. She's a 4, which means she's also artistic, creative. And she's a 9. She's a very peaceful, has a very ecumenical style. So her thing is that she's pretty much the sort of a leader, aggressive, strong personality type. And her daughter is a flower child. Okay. Yeah. So she thought when her daughter would exhibit a lot of creativity and a lot of wanting to be different and all that, she felt like her daughter was just doing that to tick her off.
Yeah.
She wanted her daughter to be much more organized, much more efficient, much more aggressive. She wanted all of that. And her daughter was never going to color in the lines. Her daughter was never going to be, her daughter was always going to be creative in some way. And so in essence, what we were beginning to see is she was trying to turn her daughter into herself.
Yes.
Rather than allowing her daughter to be herself. All right. And so the Enneagram helped the mother to see that. And now, and so fast forward, she's blown away by it. I run into them probably about 2 years later. And I asked her, I said, how is it going? You know, she recognized me. I didn't recognize her. So I asked her, I said, well, how's it going with your daughter? She says, we have a phenomenal relationship now. And she said, all because of that Enneagram. She said, you helped me to see my daughter for who she is and not who I want her to be.
Yeah.
And her thing is that only thing I regret is I didn't know the Enneagram sooner, because I don't know how much damage I had done to my daughter trying to make her into myself.
Yeah.
After that, I was fully convinced when I, taught it for the parents came up to me afterwards. I was fully convinced that the Enneagram is a tool that we can use to help us with, particularly with teachers, particularly with parents, to understand their children. And so now I teach it for Oakdale Christian Academy for the Parent Teachers Conference, Parent Teachers Association. I help with the teachers, and I help and use it in our youth and children's division.
When you think about training parents and equipping them with this tool, what's typical of the major issues that they're dealing with, and how have you applied this to assess their situation and to help them navigate relationships within their family and spousal relationships?
Well, what happens is that to give you an understanding of the Enneagram's process. So there's 9 personality types. So one is a good person. It is usually a first child, the oldest child, or the one that takes leadership in the family. All right, now follow me. 2 is a loving person. They are put other people's needs before their needs. They've never met a stranger, easily connect with people, have a hard time saying no. 3s are efficient people where they operate in systems. So they're efficient people. They have a process. So if you ever want something like a process or some problem solved, you always call a 3 because they'll create a process. They make great coaches because they create a process to bring the best out of people. 4s are original people where they operate, they're your creatives, your artists, and that. 5s are your wise people. They're your introverts, your thinkers, your intellectuals. They can be introverted in a way. 6s are your loyal people. They are your law and order people, black or white, never the color gray. They don't like surprises. They're not risk takers, and that. Follow the rules and you have no problem with the 6. 7s are joyful people. They're your big picture people. They are your fun-loving people. They're risk takers, adventurers, love to travel, love to connect with new things. 8s are powerful people. They're your captains of industry, your activists, people with strong personality, principled people. They're the people who speak up when no one else does. All right. And then 9s are peaceful people. They're your reconcilers, you're ecumenical people, easygoing people as well, similar to the twos. Now you notice that I said good, loving, efficient, original, wise, loyal, turned around and said joyful, powerful, peaceful. Those are the characteristics of God, right? God is all of those things.
Yeah.
And we have a slice of that in us. Remember, we are made in the image of God.
Yes.
So we have a slice of that in us. So the goal is now, remember, every aspect of what God has given us is good. But sin, the sin within us, pollutes that which is good. So now when I talk about one being a good person and they're a leader, they're a perfectionist, guess what? Perfection can be something that is good, and the enemy can also pervert it by making us believe that we have to have children who have to be perfect. All right?
Good.
Now,
that's good.
We can be very loving people, right? We can love people through a lot of challenging things. But guess what? The enemy can pervert that by making us enablers as parents, right? We can be enablers. We can continue to have a hard time saying no to our children and yes to everything they do. We can be efficient people where everything has to be done in an efficient way. But that can also be what? You can miss the human connections. You're always wanting to create this excellent process, but you forget that their excellent process also includes people. So the people have to be in there. So if we're trying to create this routine as parents, I need this routine so my house runs efficiently. Well, you forget that there's a human element in there, and those are your children. They can't, it's not always going to be perfect. All right. If you are a 4, you're an original person where everything is creative and everything. Well, your children may not be thinking that way. Suppose you're creative and your child is a scientist. They're not thinking that way. They're thinking in what? In a very, very structured way. So they're looking for structure now when you're thinking that they need to have some level of quote unquote freedom. Are you following me?
Absolutely.
You're a 5 and you're a wise person. You're an introvert. You're a thinker. Okay. And you don't easily connect with people. Well, guess what? If you're a parent and you're a 5, you're having trouble connecting a lot of times with the children, with your family, because you're thinking that you're thinking that if I give my children everything they need, I can go into my office and do my work. Again, are you seeing how
I'm connecting the dots.
Right. And so now if you're a 6 and you're a parent, that means you value security. You value preparedness and all of that. Well, if you're a parent, you're cautious about everything. Your children can't do anything because you're afraid that something's going to happen to them. So every decision that you make is within that framework. So your child is in a household that's got, the best security system, the best everything, because you're afraid that something is going to happen to your family. What does that do to the children? Are you following what I'm saying? If you're a 7 and you're a 7, that means you're joyful, you're big picture, you're not very detailed. You get bored very easily. You move from different things. Well, guess what? If you're a parent and you're a 7, I'm willing to believe there are all these unfinished projects in your house. You started cleaning the garage out, got distracted. You started, renovating the kitchen and got distracted, or this or that. And so your child is in a house that is just, it's like, when are we going to get to sticking to something? And remember, sevens always have all these new ideas. So now they've got the RV sitting outside, they've got the trampoline, they've got the boat. And so the kids are like, okay, when are we gonna like get one thing and stick to it?
Yeah, that's good.
If I'm an 8, I'm a powerful person. I'm speaking out about everything. My personality is strong. So guess what? If I'm a parent and I have this strong personality, my kids are afraid of me.
I'm thinking about the pandemic passed in the last 2 years.
Yes.
And I'm reflecting on these different type of images going through my mind. Who would have had the greatest struggle during this pandemic time?
Oh man, definitely the greatest struggle during this pandemic were the 4s. The 7s had a great struggle during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And also people who can't control things like the 1s, the 3s, the 6s. They can't control the environment, so they don't know what to do. So guess what they did? Their house was immaculate. They cleaned their house.
Yeah.
They did building projects in their house. They did all of that, but again, what people who have these structured personalities, they realize that their children are not very structured. What parents didn't realize was, I'm with these kids all the time. I used to be with them a couple of hours a day because they get to go to school and all that. Now we're here all day.
All day.
And any of them. And what happens when you don't have any tools to be able to understand how to do that?
Yeah.
Because remember, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
That's it.
So you're pounding, and you need more tools for the tool chest. Because guess what? It's one thing when you have one child you have to figure out, but what happens when you have 3 and 4 children that have all these different personalities? One is very creative. One is very introverted, is a thinker. One is the life of the party. One has all the mouth and the strong personality. And you weren't necessarily wired to handle all of them.
When I think about it, for parents who have been, pulling their hair out maybe over the last 2 years and trying to deal with these different, the different children and personalities and so forth. I want them to know now from your explanation, hey, it's normal. It's normal, right? And so, although you think your home just blew up because of COVID, you're actually getting to know each other in a way you probably never have known each other. But the bigger key is, because you may not be familiar with this type of information and knowledge, you probably dealt with it in a different way or responded in a different way than if you were equipped and trained or took these type of assessments to understand the different personalities and type of people in your home. When I listen to you and I'm just thinking about building a better you, your new book that's coming out. I want to dive in there a little bit because we're embarking on this journey together, and we're trying to discover, right, this building and making it better. And I love the way that you talked about how God made us very unique, and we all have intrinsic value. But we're wired different, right? We're motivated by different things, and our personalities are different and so forth. But that's normal, and that's a good thing. It could be a good thing that sometimes we may not understand. Talk to me about building a better you, the passion for writing it, and maybe 2 or 3 key points in there for our parents to understand and be encouraged, and then give them a word of encouragement around those key thoughts, if you would.
Okay, so it's the title of the book is Building a Better You, using the Enneagram to help you find purpose, healing, and success in relationships.
Yeah.
All of us are confronted by understanding what is our purpose from God. Jeremiah 29 says, I know the thoughts and plans I have for you. So God literally has plans for us. And so all of us have a purpose that God has for us. And ignorance to our purpose doesn't cancel it out.
Yeah.
But just because I don't know what it is doesn't mean that I don't have a purpose.
Exactly.
I have a purpose. So the goal is to help me find tools to help me find out what is my purpose. The second thing that you want is I need to get some healing. Many times broken people break people, hurting people hurt people. So how do I try to understand myself so that I can heal from some of my own experiences and trauma and not pass this on to my children? So for example, if I've been abused in some way, or I've had a traumatic childhood and I have not been to therapy, I've not been to counsel, to have some level of counseling and done the necessary work, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to pass that on to my children without me even knowing it. And so part of this book is about, let me find my purpose, let me get some level of healing so that I can have success in a relationship. Because remember, part of relationship is that what? The more I know about myself, the better I can be in relationship with you. But the lifeblood of anything that we do is based upon what? Relationships. Yeah. We were called to be in community. The Absolutely. Family unit is what? Is all about relationships.
All about relationship.
All about relationships. And whether it's the husband and wife or extended family or however the family's made up, it's made up of people. And those people have a variety of purposes, variety of issues and things that they bring to the table. And one of the hardest things that we will ever do is to know ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing, is to know ourselves. And we don't really have a lot of tools to help us to know ourselves. So we're always constantly in conflict with our family and our children. So people come to me and they'll say, oh, Pastor Griffin, if my wife would just do such and such, if my children would just behave in this way. The real thing is that they're the problem. They don't even see it.
Yeah.
They don't even see it.
Don't even see
because
it.
They're so busy looking out that they're not looking in. Mm-hmm. And so the Enneagram is about helping you do that. Now, of course, when you're looking at the Enneagram and your relationship to family, but we also, not only are we dealing with our families, we're dealing with our church families, but we're also dealing with people at work.
Absolutely, yes.
And what do you do when you have to work with a bunch of cave people? Cave people is an acronym that I believe stands for Christians Against Virtually Everything. So what do you do when you got to deal with these people? They're against every single thing that you have proposed, you think about. How do you navigate that? How do you deal with the staph infections at the job? Hospitals are not the only ones that you can get a staph infection from. You can get a staph infection from your staff, your STAFF. How do you sort of do that? So the Enneagram becomes tools to help us work through that. And that's the key of the book. And we're going to help you with, helping you put together a mission statement. Because if the ministry that you serve or the church that you lead or it all has a mission statement.
It all has a mission statement.
How come we don't have one?
That's right. Well, now you're talking my language, because one of the things that we teach a victorious family is that, if we're not being intentional to raise our kids in the Lord, someone else will be intentional in distracting them with a whole different worldview, if you will. And so they have a plan, and we've abdicated that sometime. We abdicated to the church. We abdicated to educational systems. We abdicated to maybe a camp or what have you. But in reality, we believe it starts in the home, and we have to start to be intentional. As you say, we never think to open a business without a business plan.
Right.
We never would think to, to start a church and establish a church or be called to a church without a ministry plan.
That's right.
But yet every day we wake up and we try to be great parents and loving parents and so forth, but we try to raise our kids without any type of intentionality at all. And I always say, if you don't have a vision for your family in terms of where you're taking them, where's the journey, what's on the horizon as you look out, what does that look like for your family? And then the mission obviously helps you to understand how you're going to accomplish that vision. And that's centered around values and things of that nature. If I don't know where I'm going, the wind takes me anywhere. And I don't know if I'm off course or on course. And we know we have an ultimate purpose, which is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And how do we lead our kids in that direction and even begin that discussion, right? Man, I'm loving it.
Can I add this
Yes,
to this?
absolutely. Absolutely.
When you do the training for the families, it is imperative that they have a mission statement.
Yes.
What I often tell people is this: purpose is offensive, because when you know what you're supposed to do, you are no longer co-opted by other people.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it's important that families, a family unit, a family has a purpose. I always think of this. I watched this on How It's Built. It said a baseball stadium is centered around home plate. The entire facility, we've been talking about the White Sox, the entire facility there is centered around home plate. And it said on How It's Built, every seat must see home plate. Other than that, there's a flaw in the building. Right?
Yes,
so
sir.
I thought, wow, that they build this $200 million facility centered around a 12 by 12 or 14 by 14 home plate.
Pastor, we got to go to about $1 billion now, though. But go ahead.
Well, whatever, $1 billion.
Yeah.
Centered around. So let's look at it even more extreme. $1 billion centered around a 12 by 12 or 14 by 14 home plate.
Yeah.
Now imagine this. Our mission statement for our families is our home plate.
Man.
And interesting, when people come up to me at Oakdale and our mission statement is to worship, grow, and serve. So when people come up to me with these wonderful ideas for ministry, the first thing I say is, how do I see home plate?
Yeah.
If I can't see home plate, then there is a flaw in what you're presenting. And the reason is we can do anything, but we can't do everything.
Yes.
So as a family, how do we protect our focus as a family of what God has called us to do so that we don't wander in the street and get hit by distraction?
Yeah.
So that's what the mission statement actually helps us do. It keeps the family on point.
On point. Yeah, keep them centered. I love that analogy, Pastor. And I think about it as I'm thinking through with my family, and that home plate for us is that cornerstone, which is Christ Jesus. And how do we help them to understand who he is and what he's done and the life that he lived? Yes, but also the fact that he's interceding on our behalf right now, and to have that ultimate relationship. We say in a layman's term that they would fall madly in love with this Christ Jesus, because they begin to understand his grace in a way that they never understood. And that's what really compels us to do. It's really, we understand his love first and who he is, and that compels us to do. I was thinking when I grew up in the early years and attending church, and a lot of times I would phrase it as performance theology. Is I need to do certain things and behave a certain way and try to live up to that, and realize I would always fall short of that because I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect, but yet I have a Savior who is.
That's
If I
right.
can just keep that focus on him and continue to take my kids back to the cross on a daily basis, we'll find just amazing peace and joy and so many other the 9 fruits there of the Spirit. Pastor, I'm loving this idea of home plate. I'm loving this idea. Flush out some more thoughts for me, because we've got $1 billion facility. We've got a home plate and all eyes must be on it. In this case, I'm saying must be on him. And the idea is, when I think about life even now, how do I finish well, right? I mean, not only do I go through this life in a way, but how do I finish well and then leave that legacy, if you will, to carry on to the next generation? Because what I do today will impact my kids in so many ways, even after I'm gone. Man, I love that story.
So,
Give me some more thoughts here.
yeah. So I'm gonna give you an example.
Yeah.
Of why the word intentional is so important. Okay. And I'm going to use me as an example.
Okay.
My parents were married for 48 years before my dad passed away. My mother told me, I said, I grew up in church all my life. My mother said, your dad came to faith, and, we all started saying, we got to go to church. My mom said, we decided we're going to raise you all in church so you all wouldn't become heathens. So my dad, I saw my parents every Sunday at church. I mean, we went, my dad, did things in around the church, my mother, all of that. Now, here's the thing. All of my brothers, we all went off to college. I have a brother who's a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I have a brother who's an investment banker. I'm a pastor. My other brother's a jazz musician, went to Berklee School of Music. Another brother who was a vice president at BET, all kinds of things, right? People look at my family and they see my brothers and I, and they say, you guys are very successful. You all are all in the church and all that. And my mother makes the statement when people say that, my mother says, that was intentional. We were intentional about making sure that our children had God in their heart, education in their head, and manners. And we knew with all 3 of them, they would go a long way.
Yes.
And the reason that they were intentional about that is because both of them came from broken homes. And my dad was like, I said, did you ever think about leaving the family and all that? He used to say this jokingly. He said, I told your mother, if she leaves me, I'm going with her. We're gonna make this work.
Yeah.
And they were intentional about making it work and building our family and keeping our family together.
Yeah, that's good. So
you're looking at something that was not an accident.
Right.
You're looking at someone who, they sat and intentionally said that if we can get God in these kids' heart, we can get education in their head, and we can give them a set of manners and things like that, we could definitely change the destiny of our family. And that's what's happening now with the generation. So my point is that that's why that home plate, and that's why that experience is, because somebody had to make the decision to change the destiny of the family. Somebody had to make, whether it was your grandfather and grandmother, whether it was your great grandparent, somebody made that decision to say, Jesus is the way. We're going to turn around and allow him to be the head of this family. Not to say that we get it all right all the time, but the thing of it is, it's all about being intentional, and it's always about seeing the home. Every single counseling session that I've ever had, that when people come to me, every counseling session, every single one of them always goes back to childhood.
Yeah.
I've never had one that didn't go back. So that meant that if we don't deal with some of this stuff, you know, as Frederick Douglass said, you know, it's easier to train, you know, train young men than to fix broken, you know, young boys than to fix broken men. So it's easier to train these people. Put God in their heart early in life. Be an example early. But again, we have to have the tools to be able to do that.
Yes, sir.
We need the Bible. We need other resources to help us with the raising of our family.
And I love that. Well, today we are with Pastor Griffin. He's heads up Oakdale Covenant Church, and just, man, 21 years now at Oakdale. And I'm thinking about his book, Building a Better You. So where can we get a copy of your book?
You can go to my website at ddarylgriffin.com, and you can order it from there. I have a book on this. This is my newest book. My first book was on transition.
Yeah.
And so now I've been revisiting my old book on navigating the transition zone, because guess what? As church and as family, we are in a transition zone right now.
Yes.
So go to Oakdale, go to ddarylgriffin.com.
Okay. And now, you know, I always recommend to our listeners, don't just buy one book. That one book's for you. That's good. I want you to pick up 10 books, because what you're going to do is you're going to gift this book to a dear friend, to a family member, to a coworker, to a church, fellow in your congregation, etc. But don't buy one book, because see, that's what people do. They buy one book, and then the person borrowed the book. You can't find the book, and so forth. So I encourage people, Pastor, to get 10 copies, and then become a truth generator, if you will. And so share, get these 10 copies, keep one for yourself, maybe your spouse and kids, whatever, but then give the rest away.
And let me say this, my brother, is when you go to the website, there's an assessment tool that I use, which is a free one, called From 9 Types. You can fill out the assessment tool, score yourself, and if you email me back, I'll help you work through some of your numbers that you can understand yourself a little bit better.
Yes.
And I also do workshops for organizations, churches, or whatever, around the Enneagram, so that you could understand yourself as well as those that you are in community with.
So that's a great starting point, to go on the website, take the assessment, order 10 copies, email Pastor Griffin and say, hey, we want to learn more. We want to go deeper in this, and let him begin to help you to go deeper. Give us that website where we can take the assessment one more time, Pastor.
So you go to my website at ddarylgriffin.com, and you'll see it on my website.
Yeah, fantastic. Pastor, here's what I like to do. I like to give you, all my guests, the last final word for about a minute or two. I have to be careful with the pastors, because, you give them the mic, it might be 3 hours. But you got a minute or two, and I want you just to look into the camera. There's families out there. Many are in great joy, but many in great pain. And the state of the family today is certainly being challenged in so many different ways. Give us some word of encouragement for our parents out there today who's raising a generation of kids that may be growing up in a different environment than maybe what we grew up in. But encourage them, or just take it wherever you want to go. But I'm just going to give this time over to you to close us out.
First of all, thank you. Yes, I am thoroughly encouraged. remember, every generation's normal is different, and every generation is different. So I often tell my congregation over and over again, an air conditioning unit, having air conditioning is normal for me. But for my parents, it was a luxury. You know, my children having an iPhone in my mind, or some cell phone or connected to social media, is considered a luxury. To my children, it's considered normal. So every generation's normal is different. And we sometimes we look at the future or at this next generation and we think that they're not going to be prepared, they're going to be lost. But actually, they were concerned about us. Our parents were concerned about us. And let's go back to our grandparents were concerned about our parents. And let's go back and say our great-great-grandparents were concerned about our great-grandparents. And yet somehow, through the power and the grace of God, we are able to still make it. I believe that Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. I really and truly believe that. I believe that we sing a song back in the old church where, without God, I could do nothing. Without the Lord, I would surely fail. Without the Lord, my life would be drifting like a ship without a sail. And so I literally believe that for families who are struggling, I really believe that Christ is the answer. I truly believe that. I truly believe that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. I truly believe we are the head and not the tail. I truly believe that we are blessed in the city and blessed in the field. We're blessed when we go. I truly believe that. And so I'm encouraged by the army of believers that are coming up. Do we have problems? Do we have issues? Sure. But so did Paul. I mean, Corinth wasn't the unhomogeneous city. It was all kinds of things were going on. And yet people were still being saved. So even in the midst of where we are and what we're dealing with, from all kinds of things that we're bombarded with as Christians from the world, we still are able to be honorable in the midst of dishonorable people. The Bible says that Jabez was what? More honorable than his brethren. His mother named him Jabez out of pain. And yet what? He still believed that he could have the courage enough to ask what? God, enlarge my territory. Keep your hand upon me. Keep me from sin so that I may not cause pain. He still had that belief. And I still believe that that same Jesus Christ, that same God, is available to us today. So I have hope. I believe that we are going to make it, because with God in us and God on our side, who can be against us?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Pastor Daryl Griffin from Oakdale Covenant Church. And it's been a pleasure, my friend, to reconnect. I'm coming back. If my Chicago White Sox make the World Series, I'm going to get me a Chicago dog. I'm going to get me a pizza.
That's
And
right.
I love to come by and just say hey and
Please.
catch up, brother. Hey,
Okay,
appreciate
please.
you, my friend. Have a blessed
All right.
day.
Take care now. You too. Bye-bye.